Picture this. You wake up tomorrow and you're in a world completely stripped of modern law enforcement. No police cars rolling down the street, no courts to hear your grievances, no judges, no juries, no prisons. You are living tens of thousands of years in the past. Now put yourself in this incredibly vulnerable spot. What happens if someone steals the food you literally just spent all day foraging? Or what if a neighbor starts a brutal fight? Or worse, what if someone commits cold-blooded murder? Without a 911 to call, what happens next? Who stops them? Who protects you? In today's Explainer, we're exploring the absolutely fascinating origins of human justice, breaking down the incredible ways our ancient ancestors maintained order long before the very dawn of law.
Okay, let's dive into this, because we immediately need to shatter one of the most pervasive myths about prehistoric life. You know the one? We tend to picture early humans as these lawless cavemen, just bashing each other over the head with clubs in a state of total chaos. But consider this stark contrast for a second. Today, we have our modern system, police, courts, prisons. These are essentially institutions built to outsource our justice. But then, look at the ancient reality: gossip, exile, and execution. The truth is, early humans didn't live without rules. Actually, scratch that, they were absolutely strict about them. They just enforced them in a radically different, far more personal way. There wasn't a formal police force, simply because there didn't need to be one.
Which brings us to a rather chilling question. Who actually stopped a prehistoric murderer? I mean, when someone crossed that ultimate line, what was the community's response? To wrap our heads around this, we have to completely shift our mindset away from these big, anonymous modern cities we're used to and step into the tightly knit, incredibly transparent world of our hunter-gatherer ancestors. The secret to how they handled theft, violence, and murder, it's baked right into the structure of their daily lives.
Section 1. The all-seeing community. To really solve this mystery, we've got to understand how these people lived. They didn't need a dedicated police force because the community itself was the ultimate surveillance system. You couldn't just hide your actions behind closed doors or slip into a crowded street because, well, there were no doors and there were zero crowds. Anonymity was absolutely impossible, and the reason for that intense, non-stop surveillance all comes down to this number: 20 to 50. That's the typical size of a prehistoric hunter-gatherer band. Think about that for a second. You are living your entire life with just 20 to 50 people. Everyone knows you intimately. You hunt together, you share every single meal, you raise your kids collectively, and you spend nearly every waking moment side by side. In a group that small, there are literally no strangers. You tell a lie, everyone knows. You take something, everyone notices. The whole community acted as the police, just by constantly existing together.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how that intense surveillance fuels something called a reverse dominance hierarchy. It sounds like a clunky academic term, but let's break it down, because it is the absolute secret engine of prehistoric justice. A lot of times we assume ancient tribes were ruled by some big, powerful, alpha male chieftain barking orders at everyone, but anthropologists have found the exact opposite. In a reverse dominance hierarchy, it's the group that holds the real power. The second someone started getting too bossy, acting greedy, or trying to seize too much control, the rest of the group instinctively teamed up to knock them down a peg. Instead of one leader controlling everyone, everyone controlled the leader.
Section 2. The escalation arc of punishment.
So how did they actually enforce these rules? Well, they didn't just jump straight to violence the minute someone stepped out of line. It was way more structured than that. Prehistoric societies use a really sophisticated, step-by-step ladder of justice. The consequences escalated based on whether or not the offender was willing to fix their behavior. It kicks off pretty mildly at step 1, gossip and mockery. If the bad behavior doesn't stop, it escalates to step 2, exile. And if the person is just too dangerous or completely refuses change, we hit the final, ultimate consequence at step 3, execution. It is a wild journey from everyday social pressure to literal life or death stakes. Let's walk through exactly how these steps worked.
Step 1. The very first police force wasn't armed with clubs or spears. It was armed with social pressure. Let's say someone in your little 20-person band starts bragging nonstop about being the absolute best hunter, or they start demanding bigger portions of food. Instead of getting violent, the group used embarrassment. They'd openly laugh at the guy, they'd mock him, tease him, whisper about him around the fire. Now, in our modern world, gossip is just kind of annoying, right? But back then, a ruined reputation meant the group stopped trusting you. And if you lose the trust of your band, your chances of survival plummet.
But, what if the laughter didn't work? What if this person just refused to drop the dangerous or selfish act? That brings us to step 2, exile, being expelled from the group entirely. Getting kicked out of a club today is embarrassing, sure, but back then, exile was a total catastrophe. Imagine being cast out into the dark, away from the safety of the fire. Suddenly you're totally alone. You're facing apex predators, freezing weather, starvation, and rival groups that are fiercely territorial. Without your people watching your back, making it on your own was nearly impossible. Exile wasn't just a timeout. It was, for all intents and purposes, a slow, agonizing death sentence.
And then there's step 3. For the absolute most extreme cases, we're talking repeated violence, murder, or just a psychopathic level of aggression that threatened everybody. Ancient humans took the final step. Anthropologists have found that capital punishment existed way before civilization or written laws ever did. In fact, it appeared in nearly every region on Earth. We are talking hunter-gatherer societies across Africa, Asia, Australia, the Arctic, the Americas. Execution was this universal human tool, used to permanently remove people who were just too dangerous to keep alive.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how sophisticated ancient justice really was. See, when a group decided someone had to be executed, they faced a massive problem: blood revenge. Think about it. If one guy steps up and executes the murderer, well, the murderer's family is going to try to kill him in retaliation. Boom, you've got an endless bloody feud. So how'd they solve it? They had the entire group participate at the exact same time, so no single person could be blamed. Or, and this is even more shocking, they would order a close family member of the guilty person to carry out the execution. Since families rarely seek blood revenge against themselves, this brutally clever rule short-circuited the cycle of violence before it could even begin. Harsh? Absolutely, but functionally genius.
Section 3. Survival of the cooperative.
Now, it's vital to understand that the gavel of prehistoric justice swung just as hard for everyday stuff too. Offenses like stealing food, cheating, flat-out refusing to cooperate, keeping a little too much for yourself, or hoarding meat after a big hunt, any of that could trigger the escalation arc we just talked about. Why? Because survival on the prehistoric edge was incredibly precarious. It required absolute 100% cooperation. One selfish person eating more than their share could literally threaten the lives of everyone else in the band. Selfishness wasn't just rude, it was a capital offense. Cooperation was quite literally a matter of life and death.
Section 4. The forensic evidence.
So you might be wondering, how do researchers actually know any of this? We're talking about people who lived tens of thousands of years before writing was even a thought. No police reports, no court transcripts. But the truth is, the dead leave a record. Ancient skeletons tell these remarkable, often incredibly violent stories. Scientists look at the bones, and they find broken skulls from blunt force trauma. They find healed arm fractures that perfectly match the profile of defensive wounds, like, someone throwing their arm up to block a club. They find embedded spear points and arrowheads lodged deep inside bone. The bones don't talk, but they preserve a crystal-clear history of conflict, self-defense, and justice. This physical evidence proves, without a doubt, that early humans were actively policing their own.
Section 5. The unresolved debate. Studying all these ancient bones and observing modern hunter-gatherers has sparked this massive, overarching scientific debate that still heavily divides researchers today. As we try to figure out the roots of human justice, we are forced to confront a really profound, unresolved question about human nature itself. Did large-scale violence and warfare only start when we settled down to farm and accumulate stuff about 10,000 years ago, or does the history of human violence go back much, much further? Which leaves us with this final thought: are humans naturally violent? Some evidence points to early hunter-gatherers living incredibly peacefully, relying purely on that gentle social pressure. But then, other discoveries reveal a history of deadly conflict and brutal, highly organized executions stretching way back into the deep past. While ancient societies completely lacked written laws, police stations, and prisons, they were definitely not lawless. They built incredibly complex, sometimes brutal, but highly effective systems of reputation, shared responsibility, and extreme consequence to survive together in a really dangerous world. It kind of makes you wonder, if the systems that keep us in line today were suddenly stripped away, would we revert back to the primal Gavel? Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I hope this completely changed how you view our distant ancestors. Keep questioning the past, and I'll catch you next time.